joined today by Erin Cowling. Erin is a former big law corporate commercial litigator, and she turned freelance lawyer and founded Flex Legal Network, which we're going to talk about a lot today. She matches busy lawyers with firms and in-house counsel with freelance lawyers to assist with overflow work. Erin's also taught on the Faculty of Law and was the regional alumni advisor for the University of Ottawa Faculty of Law. So you've taught a lot. I'd love to hear about that experience because a lot of the people I work with also want to teach law. So welcome, Erin. So glad to have you.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here.
Thanks. So take us back to your days as a litigator in big law and tell us a little bit about your experience in big law and then what motivated you to leave.
Happy to revisit those days. My days in big law were really exciting because I was young and single and working on really exciting cases that went to the Supreme Court of Canada, which I got to do in my second year of practice, and they were making headlines in the newspaper. I was also working around the clock, but that's what you're supposed to do. And luckily, my boyfriend, now husband at the time, was also working at another large law firm. So he understood my crazy hours and canceling at the last minute and things like that. At the time, and for where I was in life, it was actually a very exciting place to be. And I'm a lifelong learner, so I was constantly learning new things. I was also working 90 days straight and 18-hour days and 14-hour days. I worked on a really big case that went from trial in June to the Supreme Court of Canada within 6-7 months, which is unheard of. You don't do that. It was just a really exciting time. So we were both litigators, both working crazy hours. And then we got married and started a family, and things started to change then. Surprise, surprise. I'm based in Canada, in Toronto, and we get long maternity leave. So I took a year off for my first child, which looking back, it was a bit too long for me. I kind of missed work. But when you're a woman and you leave practice for that long, I came back to most of my files had been given away to male associates. And so my practice had basically disappeared. And I knew I wanted to have more children. So the thought was, well, do I bother ramping up my career again, or do I just have my second child now? So I was back for maybe 4 or 5 months, got pregnant with my second, left again. And by the time I came, I only took 6 months off, I think, for the second maternity leave. By the time I came back, I was at that window for partnership. I had no practice. I had no book of business. And I was kind of thinking, oh, this isn't looking so great. Maybe I should be starting to look elsewhere. But to be honest, the firm made that decision for me because we merged with another law firm and they decided to let go some lawyers. And of course, I was a woman who'd been on mat leave for a couple of years, didn't have a book of business, lost all my files. I was that up and coming star.
How was that for you, that experience?
Being let go, a bit traumatizing, to be honest, because as lawyers, we really identify with our job and our role. And especially when you buy into that big law firm's the place you have to be, it's the pinnacle of success. It's a bit of a blow. I also panicked because I didn't have that book of business. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I took the first job offer that came my way because, I panic, have a family, have mortgage, all that kind of stuff. So I accepted a job at an estate litigation firm. So I went from corporate commercial litigation, where you're dealing with big companies, to very conflict-filled, emotional files where people are fighting with their family and siblings and loved ones over money. And I just didn't think clearly. And I didn't reflect on the type of work and my personality and my strengths and weaknesses. I'm not a huge fan of conflict, even though I'm a litigator. Conflict over sophisticated contracts is different than mommy loved you more. That makes me mad. So I want all the money from the estate. So I'm going to fight you for years in court, and I'm going to call you names, and I'm going to call my lawyer names. And this was not, and now I'm probably going beyond your question.
Keep going. I want to finish your thought. I do think it gets to the, what are your strengths and personality preferences, and what kind of work environment do you want to be in? I really do think it speaks to that. So please keep going.
And if I could go back and tell my younger self, it's that don't listen to what what other people say is a successful lawyer. You have to think about what's successful for you. And that was life lesson. And so I jumped into this other role. It was clearly not suitable for me, but I also come from a long line of people who don't quit. We are not quitters is how I was raised. If you commit to something, you have to see it through. Especially, I didn't have another job. I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to stick this out, this new job. I just started it. I can't quit. It just mentally, it was just draining on me. I was walking around like I had an orb of anxiety just all around me. And I mentioned this on a LinkedIn post, I think.
Yes, that I commented on. I would love for you to share this. Yes, please.
I got to the point where I was walking to work and it was kind of raining out and it was dark and I was miserable, and this car, and I vividly remember this kind of sports car coming around the corner really fast, and I was in the middle of the intersection crossing, and the thought just crossed my mind that, oh, I hope this car hits me, but not like kills me or really injures me, just enough that I maybe break a leg or an arm, so I don't have to go to work for a few days. I can just take a vacation in the hospital.
Thank you for sharing that. You're so not the only one who has had that thought. I really hope that you know that. I bet you do because you shared it and got a lot of response, but I have heard something so similar from hundreds of women lawyers.
I know, it's so scary. Even before that, my toddler had a horrible stomach ache, like stomach illness. And I would like be kissing him and getting him to breathe on me because I thought, well, if I have the flu and I'm throwing up, I can't go to work. Like, how backwards is this? And you're right. I've heard this from many other people when I've told them. They're like, yeah, I have had that hit by a car or get really sick fantasy.
One of my former clients, she got like hit. She was on a Vespa or something and she had a little accident. She was like, I get to go to the hospital. And thankfully she was not horribly injured, but it just like, you are so not alone in having thought that. And thank you so much for sharing that on LinkedIn. I do want to get to your LinkedIn because you share a lot there. You're really active there. It's where I noticed you and invited you to come on the podcast. And because I think a lot of the things that you share about mental health are resonant. You kind of jumped into this thing. You had 2 young children at that point. It was not the right fit. How did you make a decision for whatever you did next?
Yeah, well, it wasn't really me. The funny thing is, like I said, I come from a long line. We don't quit. And I just was not giving myself permission to see that this was not the right thing for me. I was still listening to other people. You need a job. You're a lawyer. You can't quit. This is a good position. And so it wasn't until I found out I was pregnant with my 3rd child and I was in my doctor's office and I was just bawling. I was just so not upset at the pregnancy, but just upset at where I was in life. And really, I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I just said to my doctor, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. I'm constantly crying. I just feel this orb of anxiety. And she's like, this is stress and depression. Like, this is serious. And at that point, she wanted to medicate me. And I thought, no, because I know I don't have anything wrong with medication, but I knew the cause of this. I didn't want to just medicate myself and keep going back to work every day. I'm like, this is my job.
Exactly. I call it situational anxiety.
Yes.
Yeah. And I've had so many people who are like, I wasn't an anxious person before, or I tended to run a little anxious, but this just exacerbated it. And it's not really who I am, but then it can become part of your identity. So then you said you just quit.
I just quit. I didn't have another job lined up. I didn't think anyone would hire a pregnant lady, even though I know we're not supposed to be discriminated against, but who's like, I was already visibly showing. And I thought, this isn't what I want to do. So I just took time off to really get to know myself, get to know what I wanted from life, and try to figure out a way to, find something that I could thrive in and enjoy, but still worked on my own kind of goals in life.
And how was that for you, going from that identity of like, we don't quit, to having that kind of like, sounds like a breakthrough moment, or like, I have to do this moment of surrender. But how was that for you when your identity had been so connected to that don't quit lawyer?
It was so hard. It was a relief not having to go to work every day, but also, when you're out in public and you meet people that, what do you do? And you're always, I'm a lawyer. It's like, I'm not a lawyer, right? I don't know what I am. And so it was always, well, I was at a big firm. I'm now, pregnant. So like, it was so awkward because your identity really is wrapped up, at least for lawyers, I feel like really wrapped up in our roles in our career. So it was a bit of a mixed, definitely relief that I didn't have that stress anymore. But also, I have to say, it was probably the lowest part of my whole career because I didn't know what I was going to do. I felt like, did I just throw my legal career away? Can I just quit like that? Are people going to think I'm a quitter? Am I going to have this big gap on my resume? No one's going to hire me again. It was a difficult time. And on top of that, I had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a newborn at home. So yeah.
I hope you had some help because that's the kind of situation that, people I've known like lose their minds. And so plus, dealing with the depression around how did you get out of that dark time?
So when I was off, the role that I quit, the owner of the law firm, I'd already promised to draft like a conference paper for her. And then I quit. She's like, I really need you to do that. I'm like, I can draft a conference paper. This will give me something to do at home while I'm watching the kids and keep my mind active. So I did that. And then instead of giving me legal work, she does a lot of speaking. So she's like, can you draft a blog post for me? So it's just little things. And I could say yes and no, depending how I was feeling. There was a lot because I wasn't her employee anymore. I could do what I wanted. And then another person I knew had just started their own law firm. And they're like, I need content for my website. I'm like, oh, I could draft that. And so it just slowly, while my daughter was born and she was in her first few months of being alive, I was just picking up little bits of work here and there from lawyers that I knew. And then it went from non-legal work to legal work where someone said, I need a statement of claim to be drafted. I need a defense. Can you help me with that? I need help with a factum, which is like a written argument that needs to go before the court. Can you help me with that? My plan was to take a year off and then start applying to big law again, because that's where, you're supposed to be as a lawyer. It's the best place to be. But then I started just really enjoying the intellectual work of being a litigator without having to deal with the clients and the opposing counsel, which were my two big. And as I realized that I'm very conflict averse, this was working out really well. So I told my husband, I said, let me give this a year, see if I can get enough work, just working for other lawyers behind the scenes to justify doing this without going back to a traditional job.
And so it sounds like it grew and you were able to do that and sustain that. And how did that feel? What was the sort of internal story you were telling yourself at that point?
It was hard because I felt a little bit less than because I wasn't a traditional lawyer, but I was also really enjoying it. And I was enjoying the more control I had over my life, the flexibility. I could work once the kids went to bed. If I didn't want to work one day, I didn't have to. And I could just feel old Erin coming back. And it was nice to reacquaint myself with her because she had been missing for a while. And I had time to do things outside of work. And the orb of anxiety was like totally disappearing. And it sounds cheesy. It was like a rebirth almost.
It does not sound cheesy. I'm getting chills and it's beautiful. And I think that's society's story, if I may, that, oh, it's cheesy. You discovered yourself, or you yeah, it's awesome. What if it's awesome? And cheese is awesome. So why do we say cheese is bad?
Yeah. I love cheese.
I love cheese. And that kind of self-discovery about your strengths. And, I do the Strengths Finder assessment with all the women who come into Will. And my hunch is you have harmony in your top 5. And that's often it's often when litigators who come to work with me are like, oh, no wonder I hate litigation, right? How did you continue to discover more about yourself and your preferences?
Yeah. So in the beginning, because it's all new and you're trying to make enough money, you kind of say yes to everything that came my way. I had a goal of one new law firm client a month. And by the end of the first year, I was working with 12 different law firms and lawyers. But I think as I got more comfortable in my own skin and my own capabilities, as belief in my own abilities, I was able to say no to some of the lawyers and law firms that kind of had red flags. But at the beginning, I didn't. I said yes, worked for way lower rates than I should have, said yes to emergency work that came in on a Friday night for Monday morning. So I was slowly getting back into that whole, because it is a balance. When you're starting a new business, you do have to say yes a little more until you have to say, then you can say no.
Then you get to say no. Yeah.
So I was learning about that.
Yeah. And I think there's also, I'm curious if this was true for you. I see women who leave big law, they take the habits and the culture and the self expectations. Oh yeah, well, this client wants something, for Monday morning at 6 p.m. on Friday night. I have to do that. So how did you do that, what I call big law detox?
When I saw that happening, I think it came back to my own confidence in myself as well, and my ability to get another client, like law firm client, if this one didn't like the fact that I wasn't available 24/7. So I started setting boundaries. And boundaries, I have a love-hate relationship with that word, but boundaries around, I didn't look at email after 6 p.m. I actually took it off my phone so I could only get it on my computer or laptop. I didn't answer the phone after 6 p.m. And because my clients were all lawyers, they actually respected it. One time I accidentally answered the phone at 7, and the lawyer was like, "Why are you answering? I was just going to leave a message for you because it's after 6 or whatever." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even notice it was like the work line that was calling." Once you stick with it, they respect it. But if you don't respect your own boundaries, they won't respect them. So if you start answering emails at 10 o'clock at night, they're going to expect you to answer the emails at 10 o'clock at night.
Exactly. Ooh, I have chills again. I had a coach who used to say, we teach people how to treat us.
Exactly. And I think what I was worried about was losing those clients. But you know what? If that client doesn't want to respect my boundaries, then that's not a client I want. And so that was fine. I probably did lose a few clients if I didn't, I wasn't responsive 24/7, but I had plenty who did respect my boundaries.
And congratulations on setting that goal of one new client a month and like achieving that, in your first year in business. So you're growing in your self-confidence, your capacity to have your own business. Take us into Flex Legal. And then I do want to get back to the boundary question because okay, all right, I'm not stepping over it, but I just want to kind of take us into Flex Legal and how you came up with the idea for that and then got that going, and tell us a little bit first about kind of what it is.
So yeah, I was becoming so busy I was turning down work. I started Flex Legal in 2015, so about a couple of years after I started freelancing on my own. I just reached out to a couple of freelance or lawyers who were doing the same kind of thing I was doing. People call us different things. I prefer the term freelance lawyer. There is contract lawyer, there's consultant and all that kind of stuff. But I like the term freelance lawyer. And really it was kind of a side hustle, just really some people I could give work to without losing the work and helping them and just having a little bit of a community of freelancers. And then it just started growing and there was more interest in it, and there was more interested in people wanting to join Flex Legal. So I was doing maybe 80% practicing law, 20% running Flex. And then it went to 50-50 because Flex got busy. And then it went to 80% running Flex to 20% practicing. And then during the pandemic, my actual own work dried up because the couple of firms I was still working with, their business slowed down. The increase in demand for freelance lawyers grew. So I actually started working full time on Flex Legal in like 2021. And so now I'm basically just running that now.
Wow, that's amazing. And first of all, congratulations on being in business in that part of your business for almost 10 years. So that's a huge, huge accomplishment. Is it only in Canada? Does it only serve Canadian firms?
We are only in Canada. I don't know if you're aware of Montage Legal out of California. They're a freelance lawyer platform as well. And Erin and Lauren?
I am familiar with her. Yes. I went to an event that goalie Cole Cochran ran. She's the Lessons from a Quitter podcast and former lawyer turned career coach. And I went to an event and Lauren was there of Montage Legal. So yes.
So they've been great kind of mentors to me since the beginning. They have anyone who wants Canadian freelance lawyers. If we have anything US freelance lawyers, we kind of partner.
I have a resource for my clients and so Flex Legal is now on it, and I'm pretty sure Montage is on it too, but I'll double check. Okay, great. Okay, good. So what are some of your favorite things about your business now?
I just love helping. There's two sides to it. So just to back up a bit, when I was in that downside of I don't know what to want to do with my life, I kind of had this very black and white thinking. I either had to work, crazy hours at a law firm or quit and become like a Starbucks barista. Like there was no in between in my mind.
Thank you so much for saying that out loud. That is exactly, we talk about a lot that I talk about, like the black and white thinking, the all or nothing. You're either winning or losing. You're either a failure or a success. So yes, thank you for saying that.
That's kind of where I was. And when I started freelancing, there's really no such thing. Well, there is part-time in law. I feel like part-time roles just turn into full-time jobs with half the pay. So this way, I kind of felt like I could take on as much work as I wanted or as little as I wanted, depending on what was going on in my life. And it just felt like the best kind of solution for what I was looking for. So what I'm excited about in Flex Legal is I get to help lawyers freelance lawyers who don't want to work those crazy hours, but they don't want to leave law altogether. So they have either young kids at home or older parents, or they have another business idea they're working on, but they don't want to give up law completely because they've put so much effort into it. If they're like, just send me one project a month, that's what we call like the work that comes in, which could be a few hours a month. Just send me that. I'll be happy just to keep my legal skills up, and they don't have to quit altogether.
And have something on their resume, right? There's often a fear of having a gap on a resume. And so that will plug that hole nicely.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, I love helping the hiring lawyers who hire us, because a lot of them are solo small firm lawyers who are missing out on, their kid's soccer game or whatever, their violin concert, because they have to work. And this way we can match them with a freelance lawyer to just take a little bit of work off their plate without them having to hire another full-time associate or anything like that. So really, I'm offering that kind of work-life harmony as much as I can between the hiring lawyer and our freelance lawyers, just an alternative way to practice law on their own terms.
So good. That's beautiful. You're helping everyone. It's like there's such a win-win, and a win for you, right? It's a win for the freelancer, and a win for you, because you get to do that work that's meaningful and fulfilling. So good. All right. Take us back to boundaries. Let's talk a little bit about boundary setting, because it's something I certainly work with clients on, and it's something, and we start really small, but you said you have a love-hate relationship with that word. Tell us more about that.
The love-hate relationship I have with it is, I feel like, I don't want to say it's a generational thing, but I feel like some of it has swung a little too far in some situations. There's some of us who are really bad at setting boundaries, and there's some who overset boundaries. I'm referring to
probably like Gen Z.
But I've seen situations where law, it's a difficult profession, and it does traditionally dictate long hours, and it could be really bad. And yes, you have to set the boundaries to protect your mental health. But it's not a 9-to-5 job. And I've seen where like an email will come in at 4:59 for like a really important client, a really important case. The Gen Z will log off at 5 p.m. without responding to it, because my boundaries are I'm out by 5 p.m. And then the law firm loses that client because that client went to another law firm who will answer. They have to be flexible boundaries, I guess, is what it is of hate.
If I could add here, so I just was working with a client who she transitioned from, practicing to doing associate development at her firm. And so she's working with the more senior associates who are kind of like, okay, the juniors are setting really strong boundaries, but they're not communicating, right? So I think it's also in that kind of situation, it can be an issue of better communication. And also, so let's talk about mental health a little bit, because I think many lawyers are setting better boundaries to protect their mental health. And I'm so happy this conversation is happening. And there's a lot out there now to support lawyers' mental health. So what do you see as both opportunities and challenges for lawyers around mental health these days?
There's a lot. And I think boundaries does play a huge role in that. I think it's the demand to be constantly available.
So destructive.
It's so disruptive. I was a bit of a disturber, I want to say, at my big law firm, because it was a while ago and we were all having our Blackberries. That's how I'm dating myself now. But the managing partner wanted all of us to give our clients our cell phone numbers. And this was the time when we all had landlines too. So my cell phone number was different. And so I said, no. I said, the only people who have my cell phone number are my parents and my boyfriend and my friends. No one else is getting my cell phone number. And I remember him coming into my office. I was like the only associate who said no. And I wonder why they let me go. Haha. And he said, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you're trying to set boundaries and whatever, but our clients really need to get a hold of us, because if they can't get a hold of us, they're going to walk across the street to the other Bay Street, which is where all the big law firms, Bay Street firm. We need your phone number. And I said, no. I still said no, because the thing was, if they left a message on my landline at work, I still got a ding on my cell phone. They didn't need the actual number. So now I'm going off on this. Oh, they're being available 24/7.
That's the thing. I agree with you. I think it's very destructive on people's mental health. I think today there's no question that a client is going to have your cell phone number. It's not even practically a conversation. This is absolutely one of the factors that I see, because so many women come to me when they're completely depleted, really this orb of anxiety that you spoke about earlier. They are in the orb and it is, pulsating. I believe boundary setting is about saying yes to what's your priorities, what's most important to you. So in that example, you're like, no, like the only people on my cell phone is my boyfriend, my family, right? You're like, this is private. This is like, and so you were protecting that yes to your sanity, and then saying no. And like, can they leave a message and I'll respond? Like there are other ways to work it out.
Yeah. And if I can just, sorry, as I'm thinking about my clarifying my flexible boundaries things, when I said law isn't a 9 to 5 job, I mean, like, yeah, you can set your boundaries. Like I set my boundaries of not answering my email after 6 p.m. and whatever. But when I say you have to have flexible boundaries in that, when I was practicing, when I was assisting another lawyer on a trial, let's say, then I did answer emails after 6 p.m. because that's the nature of the business. If you're on a trial, you are on call to do that last minute legal research or whatever. And that's fine because that's actually the exciting part of being a litigator. You have to give up your life maybe for a week. That's where you learn. That's where you grow. And so it's okay to work those long hours during that time. And I think some of the newer generation doesn't see that. And when you're setting those really rigid boundaries, you're missing out on some of the more exciting aspects.
Yeah, thank you. And can we just say potentially that kind of trial is not for everyone too? Right. And so I think back to that, like, and it's funny you use the word harmony, right? Like really for someone to know themselves and know what are the elements, the factors of what they want in their career and what they don't. So a younger lawyer can have that experience and then decide, as you did, to evolve. So now looking back at your younger self, what might you tell like your younger self who was in the big firm? I mean, you said before, like, stop taking everyone else's advice, which I think is brilliant. Is there anything else you would want to tell your younger self?
This question always is a bit of a catch-22 for me, because if I went back and told myself, my younger self, things, I wouldn't end up where I am now. And I love where I am now. So she needed to learn everything she needed to learn as she went along. But if I could go back and tell someone now who's starting out, is I think just be open to opportunities. And when I left law school, really the goal was to become an associate at a big firm, partner, equity partner, maybe managing partner, and then retire. Like that was the only kind of accepted plan. If you're so locked in on that, you're missing other opportunities that could come up that may not fit directly into your mold of what you think a successful lawyer is. But if you are open to those opportunities and at least looking at them and exploring them, maybe that will be the best career choice for you. So I think just keeping an open mind and just saying yes to things.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, I worked with a woman recently who also was leaving applied for and got a position in associate development. And then she was struggling so much with giving up the lawyer identity. It was like really hard for her to accept that position. It really kind of tore her apart. So what would you say to someone who's, very wrapped up in that lawyer identity along with this, like keep open to opportunities?
Yeah, I still struggle with it because even though I'm fully a business owner, entrepreneur, and I haven't practiced in a couple years, I still identify as a lawyer. I run this business, but I'm also a lawyer. I'm a lawyer who runs this business because you put so much time and energy and also you can't remove your lawyer brain. Like if I see CEO and they're negotiating a contract, I'm like, well, that's a silly clause to put it. Like you can't remove it. It's there. It's who you are.
It's such an asset. Yeah.
It is. And I think it's okay to still want to identify as a lawyer. And you are. I think I'll identify as a lawyer until I die because that's just who but you have so much more to you than that. You're not just a lawyer. And that's the problem I think a lot of people get caught up into when they work so much and they're so stressed about getting that next promotion. Their hobbies are disappearing. Their, friendship, their interests, all that stuff makes up who you are as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you.